Right now, I want to get to some of our top stories, which involves President Donald Trump. He is actually supposed to turn himself in. He says he will do so tomorrow, but he has until Friday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time to do so. Right now, I want to bring in a friend of LiveNOW from Fox, attorney Andrew Lieb. Andrew, good morning to you. You have been following all of this as far as it goes with former President Donald Trump and his co-defendants and these indictments. If you could briefly catch us up, how did we get to this point?
Oh, well, that's the million-dollar question, Janae. I can't fathom how a billionaire who lives in a private club with a model wife somehow turned his life into this. But as we know, we have 4 indictments. That's setting aside that I think he has something like 7 civil cases going on, too, maybe more. And when it comes to the 4 indictments, we have New York, which is a state indictment. We have both D.C. and Florida, which is federal indictments, and we have Georgia, which is a state indictment. And I think the way we got to this place is this inclination, this goal to always push everything to the line of fire. And what we learn when we're little kids, Janae, and I don't know about you, but my little 4-year-old knows that once you touch the stove, you get burned. But for Trump, he doesn't seem to get burned. He just keeps going back to the stove and trying to push it further and further and further. And we have a lot unfolding every day now, Janae.
Andrew, and to think, I mean, so he's set to turn himself in tomorrow, so Thursday, that's what he claims. Can you take us through the process as far as what will happen when he gets to the Fulton County Jail, what that looks like? We do know that his bond has been set at $200,000.
Yeah, it's very interesting that it was set, Janae. What's happening is that Fani Willis is having these meet and greets with these defendants, and they're making consent orders on the bond. And we, first of all, know what happened because John Eastman has turned himself in. We have pictures, and unlike what's going on in other places like Florida and like D.C., where he just goes to the court and the court surrenders him there, and then he just gets processed in this nice place. Trump is going to end up getting processed in this dingy, dirty, as he would say, when he was driving to D.C., I remember him saying it was all I forget the exact words, but it's disgusting. It's bad. He's going to go and get a real experience that if you've never been to a jail, it can scare you straight. I remember my first experience when I first was out of law school. I had to go meet with someone in a jail. And ever since that moment, I never wanted to even take a piece of gum for free anymore in my life. So he's going to go there. They're going to do the height and weight. I think you and I actually were the first people to discuss this. Now it's going all over the internet tonight. People are trying to guess Trump's weight. There's all sorts of games about it. I think it's going to be a new Las Vegas competition, but they're going to do his height, his weight. They're going to do his mugshot. If you've seen the mugshots, the lighting is just terrible. It's like this very, very bright light, but that's what's going to happen. And what Trump did, this is very Trump of him. He scheduled his time to turn himself in. He had till Friday. We know that. He scheduled it right in prime time, so he's going to be right all over the news. But what the most interesting wrinkle is not Trump. The most interesting wrinkle is Mark Meadows. Mark Meadows has what's called a removal motion. He removed his case to federal court, and they have a hearing scheduled for Monday to remand it back to state court. The process is first, a defendant's able unilaterally to remove a case from state court to federal court if they believe it's federal jurisdiction, and then the prosecutor can bring a motion for remand. But what's interesting is because that hearing is on Monday, Mark Meadows has said, I don't want to turn myself in till Monday because I may not need to surrender to Georgia. Well, Fani Willis said, oh, no, oh, no, oh, no. I'm issuing my arrest warrants. So now Mark Meadows just made an emergency filing asking the federal court to unilaterally postpone his time for surrender. So that's the most juicy thing coming on right now. Will Mark Meadows get an adjournment of his date to surrender? Will there be an arrest warrant? What's going to happen? I want to know, is Mark Meadows going to be cuffed? We're going to find out.
So we know that Rudy Giuliani, the ex-New York City mayor, set to turn himself in today, along with, Donald Trump, as we just mentioned, tomorrow. One thing that I find interesting out there in Georgia, so we've heard of all of these Georgia rappers, Young Thug, YFN Lucci, all of these people who are facing RICO charges. The former president was very critical of them, calling them thugs, and now he is facing some of the same charges. Very ironic. If you could speak to this, a rapper and a former president facing some of the same charges.
Well, I want to start off with the statement he's calling them thugs. He likes to use terms that are whistleblowing. If you don't pay attention to Trump, he's very coy and very cute on how he uses language. But always he talks about cities that are composites of people that are African Americans and Asians and Indians and anyone that's not a Caucasian. And he uses these terms that, and I'll give you another example. You know the term two-tier justice system? That's a big talking point Trump's doing. It's two-tiered. Republicans get it one way, Democrats get another way. Well, two-tier justice system really refers to people that have means versus people that don't have means. In my lifetime, until Trump became president, to think a billionaire could be on the second tier of the two-tier justice system would blow your mind. But yeah, there's irony here. There's irony in Rudy Giuliani being in a RICO charge as well. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a young thug versus a Trump thing. It's anyone who commits crimes should be prosecuted. If we don't believe people should be prosecuted, we should get rid of laws. So this conversation of it being two-tiered, let's see. Maybe Trump is completely innocent of these 91 different felony charges he has over 4 jurisdictions. Then he would get the last laugh and he would have a very valid point. But statistically speaking, if I told you, Janae, I said our friend Rachel had 91 charges against her, it's not statistically probable that she's going to get acquitted on all 91 of them. So it's a great talking point. It's great for politics. But in the end of the day, just saying thing about young thug or what he did when we talked about the Central Park people back in the day, he likes to bury the people that don't look like him or talk like him. And at the end of the day, we as a society need to not look at people as who they are, if they're a rapper, if they're this, if they're that. We just have to say, did you follow the law? Great. Did you not follow the law? You're getting prosecuted. That's what law and order means, and I'm a law and order person. I hope you are too, Janae.
You're raising great points. 91 charges. At least one of them would stick, do you think? Out of them, which ones do you think will stick, and which ones do you think that the DA will be using to push for the former president to serve some time?
Well, I would start off by telling you, and I've been saying this a long time now, that the biggest charge to me comes out of Florida. And not when I say biggest, the one that makes me feel like I want to charge him for it. Not emotionally, but we have him on recording admitting that documents were not declassified. We have him on recording showing people these documents. We have the defendant smoking gun. When I say we, why do I say we? I'm not we. Well, we are, because it's the U.S., the United States verse. When you read the caption's what a case is called. It's United States versus Trump. I am part of the United States. That's why I use the word we. I don't wish bad about Trump. I could care less what happens to Trump. People like to pigeonhole me and say I'm anti-Trump. I'm not anti-Trump. I could care less. What I care about is the United States is bringing charges, and they have the defendant on recording admitting committing a crime. Oh, by the way, they were Iran war plans, our arch nemesis. So that's one route that I think is going to be a damning situation. But you have to go to what happened yesterday as well. If you haven't seen this, Janae, there's a reply. A reply means that there's a motion that goes on, a motions and applications of the court before Judge Cannon in Florida. What happened is Jack Smith had asked for what's called a Garcia hearing. He said, hey, listen, there's conflicts of interest here. We need to get independent counsel because, this attorney that's representing these people, this attorney Woodward, he's conflicted. And by the way, I need to get someone else to represent him about, guess what? About the fact that the superseding indictment said that D'Olivier and Nora were talking with the IT guy trying to get him to delete evidence. And there was a flip, and that's what we just learned yesterday, that employee number 4, we have this employee 4 was represented by the same attorney as Nauta. He said before the grand jury that none of this happened. We learned that yesterday. And then they had a hearing before the chief judge in D.C., and the chief judge got him his own attorney, and instantly he flipped on Nauta, and that's why we have the superseding indictment. There's a flipped witnesses inside the Trump house that is saying that hey, listen, they tried to delete evidence and they did all these things. And now we're going to see what happens down in Florida. We're going to see if Judge Cannon has to get a new attorney because this attorney has conflicted out, oh, this is juicy stuff. So where could there be the biggest exposure for Trump? Down in Florida, Judge Cannon's in a pickle right now. She's probably going to have to get a new attorney to represent Nauta. We might have some more flipping. The key to a RICO charge going to Georgia is the same thing everywhere else. We're going to see lots of flipping these days. And flipping is going to be the key word we're going to want to use for the next year, Janae. That's where we're going to find out what's really going to happen, where he's going to get charged. That statistically one jail time could happen, Janae.
My goodness. So would you say that flipping and obstruction is kind of the same thing for those that don't understand the legal talk? Because, of course, the destroying of evidence, that has been something that we've seen across all platforms, across both sides of the aisle when it comes to former presidents, accusations when it comes to that.
Yeah, so obstruction means you're trying to block something. And I get this conversation a lot when we talk about the documents. We say, why was Trump different than Pence? Why was Trump different than Biden? They all had government secrets, government documents. And the best way that I could explain that is, and Pence was cleared, Pence and Biden, so we think, so we know, so we believe, when they found out they had documents, whether in the Corvette or otherwise, said, come get the documents. To give you a contrast, Trump obstructed. Trump hid the documents, moved the documents. We saw the documents in the bathroom. We know from this evidence from employee number 4, Janae, that they tried to delete the security footage. We know that there was an attorney who signed an affidavit that they turned over the documents and they didn't. That's what obstruction means. Obstruction means blocking, trying to interfere, not letting happen. But that's not flipping. What is flipping? Someone who's aligned, part of the conspiracy, part of the RICO charge, part of the criminal enterprise, to use a term from Georgia. That person saying, listen, Trump, I'm on your side, except for the fact that I just saw the jail cell and I'm not going to that jail cell. People, come see me. I will testify and say he did everything wrong. It wasn't me. Just give me immunity. So flipping means that you cut a deal where you're going to get immunity or a lesser charge to testify against a co-conspirator or someone you're a witness to, whereas obstruction means you're intentionally trying to block the government's investigation. And that's both these situations. But what's really going to happen is with these 2 co-conspirators down in Florida, all these co-conspirators in D.C., not D.C., in Georgia, we're going to see lots of people seeing the light, looking up in the sky and seeing the light and saying, you know what? I am not going to jail for this guy. And that's when this is going to get very interesting, Janae.
Andrew, that word immunity, so many conspiracy theories surrounding these indictments. I want to ask you, so we do know that former President Donald Trump, he is in the race when it comes to 2024, the race to the White House. But many people saying he's going to try to prolong this as long as he can so that if he wins and becomes the next president of the United States again, he would be able to give himself immunity. There has been some talks about that. Are you able to break that down for us this morning?
I could do whatever you need, Janae, as long as you share with me those recipes we were talking about before.
Course.
I'm your guy. So here's the thing. A president can pardon someone on federal charges. It's untested whether a president can pardon himself. When I say untested, in the way the world works in the United States, we have theories, and until the Supreme Court rules on something, we don't know what the law is of the land, meaning it's a retroactive judicial system. But theoretically, Donald Trump, if he won president, could pardon himself in both Florida and in D.C., and theoretically, those charges would go away. However, he has 2 problems. One's called New York and one's called Georgia. In both of those states, a president could not pardon himself. In fact, in New York, Governor Hochul today is the person with the pardon power, and she's a Democrat. Who knows what she would do? Then you go down to Georgia. The devil went down to Georgia. That's what we hear. In Georgia, Governor Kemp, who's a Republican, does not have the power to pardon someone. There's actually a board that allows people to pardon people. But in Georgia, it's a skewy law. We didn't know about this. And in Georgia, what happens is you have to serve jail time before the pardon. You can't pardon proactively. The jail sentence has to happen. So that's really not helping Trump whatsoever. There's a lot of people in movements to try and change that Georgia law. But I have a concept for you that really bugs me out, and I just want to share it with you. Let's assume, for argument's sake, Trump wins president. He's not going to the debate tonight, but he's polling ahead of all the Republicans, and he's neck and neck with Joe Biden. So let's assume it's very likely he could win the presidency. Let's assume that he pardons himself. Let's assume that's upheld by the Supreme Court. Let's assume that the Republican Kemp in Georgia with his people are able to change the law and he can get pardoned in Georgia. He can't right now, but let's assume that. What would happen, I just want to ask you this question, if New York refused to pardon him? What would a President Trump, who we know doesn't like to follow normal course of dealing, Janae, what would he do with New York? Would he try and take New York out of the Union? Would he go and serve jail time in New York while he's President of the United States? What would happen there? And that really gives me a lot of creepy crawlies all over my body. So I'm very concerned about that. And I would hope that we find that Georgia and New York stick together. And that's really important moving forward to preserve our union. I'm concerned about that. But at the end of the day, for Trump, stop talking about pardons. Stop talking about winning and clearing yourself. Let's see the evidence. I thought this past Monday we were going to learn why you're innocent. What happened on Monday, Trump? Janae, do you know?
I don't know. He did tell us that he was going to post some remarks on his Truth Social account that would, quote, exonerate himself. I have not heard anything. Maybe I didn't see it. But look, Andrew, I mean, people had a field day when you gave your remarks last time we spoke. You said it's only a matter of time before people start singing. People are starting to turn themselves in. We know that Rudy Giuliani is set to do that today. Is there a person that you think will be the first to sing? And if they do start singing, what do you think will come out when they start telling certain things so they can get less time or certain things dropped for their potential indictment?
Well, we already have the first singer. That's employee number 4. That's what we learned yesterday, which we believe is the IT person that works in Mar-a-Lago. Apparently what happened, and we're learning about this because Judge Cannon tested Jack Smith, the special prosecutor. She said, why are you having an independent grand jury in D.C. about these Florida charges? I want to know, Jack Smith, you shouldn't be running an investigation in D.C. about Florida charges. Well, Jack Smith just responded, and he said, I wasn't running it about the Florida charges. I had this employee number 4 who testified before a grand jury in D.C., and he committed perjury. And when we told him he was a target, he had this attorney, and Mr. Woodward. And Mr. Woodward was also representing NADA. So what they had is what's called a Garcia hearing. And the chief judge in D.C. said, hey, this could be a conflict. Employee 4, do you want your own attorney that's not being referred to you by Trump, that's not being paid for by Trump's political action committee? And the chief judge gave him an attorney. As soon as he got an attorney, he flipped. And that's why we had the superseding indictment. He said, I was told by De Oliveira and by NADA to delete this footage. It was them. So he's the first singing. He's the first one to go. But I got to tell you, we're going to see a lot more singing soon. All these people, we're seeing what's going on. We're seeing with Giuliani. We're seeing with Meadows. Meadows may have already been singing with the feds. We don't know what's going on with Meadows. But the reality sets in when those cuffs go on. So I would say that this is a good thing that we should be playing. It could be a drinking game. Who's going to flip next? We have a bunch of questions going on, but who's going to flip next? And I'm going to say, I'm going to posit it here. I'm going to just throw it out here that I think Meadows is the next one we learn about flipping. I have no reason to believe that besides I'm playing a crystal ball, but let's see if he's the next guy to flip. I don't know what everyone else is thinking, though.
So how long will all of this play out? I mean, Trump's set to turn himself in tomorrow. If he doesn't, he has until Friday. How long will all of this take when it comes to court hearings and everything like that? Because many people fearing this will be a prolonged process to where due process won't happen.
Janae, what we have is Jack Smith asked for January 2nd for the January 6th case. Trump responded and said, we need 2016. We're going to see. We're going to see what day Judge Chutkan sets the trial for. But no matter when they set the trial, there's going to be these applications. There's going to be appeals. This is going to play out for years. Not a day, not a week, not a month, but years. Trump has a problem here. His problem is that he has 4 charges going on, and he's legitimate about this. He's right. He has 4 charges going on and all these civil cases, and he's trying to campaign for president. How are you supposed to campaign for president when you're sitting in a courtroom? So he wants to delay, and that's legitimate, that he wants to delay so he can run for president. Now, what's questionable is, did he run for president to avoid the charges? That's something you and I will never know. And more importantly, when you make a decision, it's multifaceted. Perhaps that's something that goes into it. But I want to tell you that I think that these cases, this RICO charge, with the amount of defendants they have, just picking a jury is going to take about 6 months, in my estimation. We're going to be hearing about this. This is going to be your full-time job, my full-time job. This is something we're going to be talking about for years and years to come, unless lots of people start flipping. It's not about employee 4 or if I'm right about who flips next. It's about the dominoes falling. If the dominoes start to fall, Janae, then we're going to see some plea deals happen. And I think we're going to see some dominoes start to fall in a different vein tonight when we watch the Republican debates, because we have Asa Hutchinson and we have Chris Christie, and they're both going to be talking about Trump, from what I hear. And they're both former prosecutors that are going to be burying him on the stage. And he's not going to be there to defend himself. Trump Jr. is going to be in the stands, but Trump himself won't be there. So we're going to see what points they make and if they can show that they have the leadership to lead the Republican Party. Someone needs to step up, assuming Trump ends up going to jail in New York or in Georgia and can't actually work from the White House. Janae.
And even on that side, it's been very interesting. You mentioned former governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson. I mean, these are people who Trump endorsed. These are people who were looking to Trump to be like, hey, say you endorse me so that I can win again in my state. And then now it's like, well, you know, we want nothing to do with him. He doesn't represent what the Republican Party used to represent. I mean, even on that account, when it comes to disowning and singing, and yet he's still a front runner for the red side of the aisle.
It's amazing if you saw what DeSantis said recently. He had his Hillary moment, if you remember when Hillary used the word deplorables. I'm not going to bury DeSantis and say what he said now, but he also had his deplorable moment. And it's amazing how they sing differently when they're running against him. What you should know is that politics are friendships of strategy, friendships of convenience, but their friendships only go as far as they can see each other. Chris Christie is the guy that prepped Trump in the debates, and you see how he's going after him. But I think what people do, and this is a mistake for both Democrats, Republicans, and independents, is they look for the candidate they want the most. They don't look for the candidate that has the best chance of winning, that's the best of both worlds. Meaning, it's not who I ideally want to win. It's about what's there, what's available, what's the one we can win. And I'm hoping that from this Republican debate, the 8 people that are coming there, whether we're going to see Vivek, he's polling really well right now, Haley or Pence, maybe Doug's going to do something here. Let's see who emerges, because we need someone to emerge as an alternative voice to Trump. Because I'm telling you now, as someone who's seen this justice system before, that Trump is strong now, but we needed an alternative choice as these sentences and flipping becomes much more of a reality. And we want to see someone strong on both the Democrat and the Republican side. And I'm just going to say, I really liked what Christie said recently. They asked him who his favorite presidents were. And he said, I really like Washington. And I really like Lincoln. I really like Reagan. And those are my morals. And I'm paraphrasing, but he said, because I want to sell a hopeful future, that America's best days are ahead of us. And I'd like to see more of that hope and positivity. Let's stop talking about grievances. Let's start tonight. That's what I'm looking for in tonight's debate. People telling me how my future is going to be better than my past. And I'm hoping that's going to be the tone. I don't know about you, Janae.
Look, we will all definitely be tuning in. And for the viewers that are confused about what you were talking about when you mentioned recipes, I'm from Memphis, so I would say we have the best barbecue. So, of course, I'm going to send Andrew some great recipes when it comes to that. But, Andrew, before we let you go, is there anything else you'd like to add when it comes to former President Donald Trump turning himself in? I will say people looking ahead thinking that if he is charged, if he is sent to jail, they don't even know how that will look, considering I don't know if he will be in general population. That might be a death sentence to him to be among other inmates facing other charges. We don't really know how that would look.
Yeah, I don't know if he would be a skinhead. He's definitely not going to be the Bloods or the Crips. We have gangs in jail, so he has such great hair. He was just talking about his hair, about water pressure in his hair. He can't be a skinhead. I don't know what he would do if he was in general pop, but I think that obviously the Secret Service is going to have him protected no matter what it is. He is still a former president, no matter how you shake it. If he was to go to jail, that's what's going to happen. That being said, I think what we have in store for us is this $200,000 bond. I don't think he's getting any Memphis barbecue this weekend, although I hope I do. I would say to you, though, that my guess, this is just my guess, if we start seeing singing, flipping, dominoes falling, my guess is at some point he's going to pull the plug and take some sort of plea, because 91 charges. This is the only thing I need to get across to people. It's not about, do you think he's right? Do you think he's wrong? It doesn't matter if you can start saying, well, Hunter, what about Hillary? It doesn't matter if we could play these games. Just go with 91 felony charges. If I told you anyone you know has 91 felony charges, you'd think statistically their odds are not good, particularly when employee number 4 is already singing. We're going to see who else sings, and I think that Trump, at some point, this illusion of what he's doing is going to turn into a deal. I think he's going to take a deal. I think there's going to be something that happens. We're going to let everyone get out with dignity. I really like this Chinese philosophy that we all need to let everyone save face. And the key isn't about Trump necessarily saving face, but that 30–40% of the population needs to be tuning in tonight to the debate, seeing what else is out there, seeing what their alternatives are. It's not all hail Trump, Trump or nothing. It's what the options are that's going to make our country the best going forward. And you have a lot of great options tonight. I hope you're tuning in.
Andrew Lee with Liebet Law, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us live this morning with Live Now from Fox.
Thanks, Janae.
All right, thank you so much. The time now 10:55 on the East Coast and 7:55 on the West Coast. We must take our final commercial break of the hour, and after 2 minutes, we'll be right back with top stories and headlines. You're watching Live Now from Fox.